Why is Volvo the best at everything except winning? Hello and welcome to today's episode of the podcast, Why Therefore, with me, Felix Brooks-Lund. Behind the wheel, we have Alex Södling, who has been. But what we're going to talk about today is that we've actually recently done a 3-car test with the Volvo EX60, BMW iX3 and Mercedes GLC. I think we're among the first in the world who managed to set up this 3-car test. Yeah.
The 3 most exciting new fantastic electric cars currently available on our market.
If I ask you what were your expectations going into this test, what did you think would happen? What did you think you would experience?
I hadn't driven the GLC before, but I had driven the other 2. The first time I drove was in the BMW, and I was struck by its fantastic driving dynamics. It delivers on the BMW qualities, and the self-driving features are also amazingly good. The overall package in itself is really excellent. It charged smoothly and nicely. See you in church. Volvo is better when it comes to noise level and the fourth foam area. I thought that Volvo should be able to win here. Then
Is in possession of.
It has faster charging. 10 to 80% in 16 minutes compared to 21 for the BMW. So if it's quieter, more comfortable, charges faster, and has a better trunk space. When I was down driving the Volvo, I thought I'd take this one first. A BMW just because of its comfort.
That's fine. I had already driven all the cars before. This is what's so cool about what we're doing when you drive each car on its own. They were absolutely wonderful. It was absolutely fantastic, that first encounter with the iX3, a whole new level. You just go, wow, finally a traditional manufacturer has figured out how to make an electric car. Just the way it should be. And the same thing with the GLC. How nice it was. It was stylish, plush, in a premium way. They had done something special with the interior too. It was completely different from the BMW. And then we drove the Volvo, and we were really impressed by the deep comfort, among other things. And then we compared them all together, and then we got, you could give Volvo a bit of criticism. On paper, it was meant to reach 810 kilometers.
Yes, that
Was the car that's coming first in a year.
yes.
So the car we got to test wasn't at all the headline grabber where they beat BMW with the longest headline. Instead, in our tests, BMW had the longest range, then Volvo, and then Mercedes. So it was a bit different.
It was a bit different, but at the same time, we can say the prices were comparable. What we did was load all the cars about the same comparable equipment so that it would be possible to compare them. And then it wasn't BMW, it was actually very similar between BMW and Volvo.
Yes, that's how it turned out. And if we're talking about what we're discussing here, it's premium cars. So these are cars that Volvo and BMW, equipped as we had them, were about 850,000. And the Mercedes, the car we tested, cost over $1 million, which makes it a really expensive one.
It's actually crazy. It's not even the worst. This is actually the mid-range, and yet it's over $1 million.
But if we talk about that, what is it that makes a premium car? Why couldn't a Toyota come in with a bit of fast charging and long range?
That's a really good question, I think. Because earlier, when I've tested cars all my life, what has defined premium has been very good build quality. You sit down in the car and oh, this is a nice interior, and the door closes and it's just a solid thud. So you're impressed by the interior, and then usually the suspension is very good or very sporty. And the drivetrain's big, nice engine, maybe a 6 or an 8 or something like that. An engine that the refinement of everything was much better if you compared it to a Toyota 20 years ago and a premium car from 20 years ago. But now the gap has narrowed, I have to say. The drivetrain difference is gone. You could say that all engines run smoothly and quietly from the factory. The electric motors have power and there are no issues on that front. And actually the electric cars from premium manufacturers have gotten worse when it comes to the feeling of interior quality. Build quality, that is the choice of materials, has really gone down quite a bit because they've tried to push prices down.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. Since the electric car components now cost so incredibly much, mainly the battery, so even the premium manufacturers have been forced, at least it seems, to make certain simplifications so that not every car ends up costing over $1 million. They have to make them cheaper and cheaper. Because now the expectation is that you should be able to buy these cars that have long range, are good, are premium, but for 600,000 to 800,000 krona instead of more than that. So that's a big difference. But if we look at those premium features, when we're out meeting different manufacturers, I know that one thing many emphasize is that it should be exceptional sound quality and comfort, range, and most certainly fast charging. These are now considered essential premium characteristics or premium factors that you absolutely must incorporate into the design.
Yes, but that's the thing. Quite a few of the cheaper brands have actually been significantly more effective than the expensive ones. So it's become a rather peculiar and unexpected distortion there.
Yes, or at least it hasn't been such a big difference in the same way. But if we look at touch and feel, there has been a very Spartan feel in many, at least European electric cars in the past. Now it's starting to become clear that those who really want to highlight this aspect are really trying to add as much as possible, and as many soft, fine materials as possible, and there should be contrast stitching and everything.
This one feels more premium with metal controls and such than Volvo. Yes.
To some extent.
Yes.
But is that what's important for the car buyer, you think?
Then, if you're spending 800,000 kroner or 1 million, you probably want to feel, wow, how nice it is. Because people who buy these cars have probably been spoiled. They've likely had nice cars before. And then you're used to it feeling very expensive and luxurious. And then you sit down and think, no. And then maybe you drive 400 kilometers or 300 kilometers and still think no. And if that's the case, then you end up disappointed. So I think many people have probably been disappointed with electric cars, especially those who have bought expensive electric cars and paid a lot.
Yeah, exactly, that it doesn't feel so premium.
It doesn't feel premium, and then you drive 300 kilometers and have to stand and charge for 45 minutes. That makes you lose a bit of your enthusiasm for cars.
Okay, but with a premium electric car, we're still like this. We have a bit of touch and feel. It's range, fast charging, that's what we said?
Yes. So now the new thing has become range and fast charging.
Yes, but also comfort. I mean, sound comfort and so on will always be important.
That's always going to be something people want.
How about the software? The user experience, that has to be important, right? Personally, I think that's something that can really bother me if it's bad, like if voice control doesn't work, navigation, route planning, if it's a hassle to change something, or if the seat heating is hidden deep in a menu and things like that. Isn't that also something to consider?
Yes, and there we have, for example, Tesla, which came in from the side, really good at software and the whole navigation and charging experience and route planning and everything. Much, much better than
some of the most high-end luxury manufacturers.
And then things got crazy. The pecking order, in a way that had existed for 100 years, disappeared. The advantage that the premium manufacturers had, they simply lost a lot of ground. For example, when Kia and Hyundai came in with 800-volt charging, which is they're not premium brands. And we're better than Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Volvo, Audi. Audi has at least started to catch up a bit now. You almost have to laugh at this point. But I think the Kia EV6 was named Premium Car of the Year in Germany once.
Did it?
Yes.
I actually didn't know that. You have to admit, that's a bit ironic.
It
is a really nice car, nothing against it. But it's not like Kia usually plays in that league.
Absolutely not.
But if we look at our tests then, I'll share some range figures about that. Because on paper, it was BMW that had the longest range. Officially, it had 805 kilometers, but in our test car, equipped as it was down to 766
kilometer. That mostly depends on the tires, right?
Yes, the tires, and then when you add some equipment, you add a bit of weight, so that affects it too. The Mercedes has 715 officially, 633 in our test. Volvo officially has 660, 648 in our test.
Is it longer in our test?
No, 648.
660 is 48.
So it's a bit longer. And then we drove it. Partly we drove both dynamically, but then we also drove as you would on a long trip. And then it was very clear that the Mercedes, with its 2-speed gearbox, even though this car is much, much heavier than the others, It just kept going and used much, much less than both of the others, which used about the same amount, 1.88 for the BMW, 1.89 kilowatt hours per mile for the Volvo, and 1.78 kilowatt hours for the Mercedes.
There was a bit of a premium feel with the Mercedes.
This
design that's more expensive and heavier with the double two-speed gearbox. It paid off.
Yes, it paid off, because you also have to remember that the Mercedes has air suspension and rear wheel steering and a lot of bells and whistles. But that meant that when we drove at 100 with a full battery down to 10%, there was quite a big difference right away. 520 kilometers in the BMW, 475 in the Volkswagen, and 440 in the Volvo. And then when we got to charging, which was Volvo's strong suit, they all did really well. Volvo charged in its 16 minutes, Volkswagen in its 22, and BMW as well.
We had preheated them using the navigation and did everything as you're supposed to. It was 20 degrees Celsius outside. The conditions were perfect as well. Yes.
And with just a single quick charging stop, we then continued driving from 80% all the way down to 10%. That was the moment when a very significant difference started to become clear. BMW went the farthest, 960 kilometers. Mercedes 900 and Volvo only 790. It might sound like that's still not too big, but it's still a 170 kilometer difference on a single charge.
On a single charge, that's a lot.
Yes, and then the difference really starts to become quite significant. And that brings us to this point. Volvo actually had the best charging, but does that really matter?
No, because the 4 minutes less that you spend charging the Volvo is outweighed by the fact that you get 180 kilometers of extra range, so to speak.
Can you drive 180 kilometers in 6 minutes or whatever it was?
Really? Impossible.
No. So you'll never be able to catch up there, even though it has good charging?
No. And when you're out driving, that's because the battery is so small in comparison in the Volvo. So if you're on a long trip, the BMW will always be much, much better. And
why is it so small in the Volvo? If we look at it, BMW has a significantly larger battery than both of the others. I think it's 109 kilowatt hours compared to 92.
92 more.
I think it's 92 in the Volvo and 94 in the Mercedes, so it's much bigger. So there's a reason why it has such long range.
Yes, and that Volvo's is so small. They're coming out with a bigger battery in this performance version. It's really just about price, and I think Volvo wants to keep the prices down.
Yeah, but here you don't get that. You get the same price on the Volvo and the BMW.
Yeah, so somewhere along the line, Volvo messed up. I think it should have been cheaper, one or the other. But now they feel like they're riding this wave. Everyone wants this car. It's super nice, and there's a 1-year waiting time and so on. We can charge this high, expensive price and make more money than BMW does. Delivered a smaller battery, and we're the winners. But what about the customer then?
Absolutely. But if you look at it, then we have two things. We said that Volvo had the longest, but not quite.
Absolutely. In
our test. And it does have the fastest charging. But that didn't matter much in our test. But there was something else we discovered when we drove our comfort stretch, or sound comfort stretch, where we tested sound comfort and such. And I was a bit surprised because when I drove, especially the Mercedes, I thought it was really comfortable and nice. But in our test, which of the three did you think had the best sound comfort?
the Volvo? By far? Yes, by far the best. It has a premium feature with active noise reduction, noise cancelling. BMW has that too. Still, the Volvo was definitely quieter. It had the largest tires.
22-inch wheels. That usually makes quite a big difference. It can get hard and noisy, but it didn't.
And slightly stiffer suspension. But it wasn't. Volvo has really succeeded there. They've done something with the sound insulation.
Yes. So it also had the absolute highest quality of acoustic and auditory comfort as well?
Yes, without a doubt. And the Mercedes was the noisiest. It doesn't have noise cancelling, and I don't know why it was. I mean, Mercedes is supposed to be soft, refined, and quiet. But this one wasn't as quiet as we had hoped.
We talked earlier about these premium qualities. How did you find the cars in that regard? Because if we look at them, they have extremely different exteriors and interiors. You could actually call it different design philosophies.
Yes, what do you want to convey? What do you want? What kind of feeling do you want to give to the customers? And there's a really big difference between these three cars. BMW wants to feel high-tech with its interior, lots of customization options, and a very futuristic interior in its own way. But Mercedes wants to be like, wow, look at me with its hyperscreen that our test car had, which is included in a package for 130,000 kroner, and I think that's something you'd want in this car. But it was flashy and fun and kind of wow. And then you step into the Volvo, which is very minimalist, almost in the Tesla direction, no buttons. And I didn't really feel that high quality sensation in the materials that people talked about, like, wow, how nice it was. I didn't feel like here I am sitting in a very small car.
No, somehow you still get that traditional Mercedes premium luxury feeling in the Merc. It is quite impressive how they do it. You have got those classic pinstripe panels, plenty of plush leather, and lots of chrome accents, along with other high-end touches that really make the interior feel special and sophisticated.
Chrome and stuff and bling. It was like a fireworks display in the Vilmar. Wow, what a cool interior.
Yeah, and in the Volvo it was very, almost a bit, it's wrong to call it plasticky because the materials are nice, but it felt very stripped down. Ventrum, if I remember correctly.
I thought it was Ventrum. It was like sitting in the county council's newly renovated waiting room. No, I don't think that's good. It
was more of an interior that shouldn't be Ferrari, but rather one that's supposed to make it cozy and inviting.
There wasn't that lounge feeling you might get in the X90 or XC90. When you step into those cars, Volvo's cars, there's still a bit of chrome trim, a bit nicer materials overall. It feels like, wow, this is an expensive, fancy lounge, a bit minimalist and tasteful and not flashy at all. But in the X60, I didn't get that luxurious lounge feeling.
It didn't have massage seats?
No, you can't even add massage as an option.
850,000 and no massage.
You can't get it. And you can't get a head-up display either. Volvo claims, as they always do, they try to defend what they're doing, but in the X30 they have it. They say there's no need for a speedometer in front of the steering wheel, but now there's this one instead, which they've placed far forward. So they say there's no need for a head-up display. There's the same thing here. Of course, a good head-up display adds something to the driving experience. So it's an extra premium luxury feature. I want a good head-up display compared to not having one. Now we're talking about cars that cost almost $1 million.
But if we stop to consider the situation here, or return our focus to the interior design, or the overall concept we have here, has Volvo become very cautious there by scaling things down? That they want to be more restrained and not provoke anyone? Or is it that customers want more Tesla-like features in their premium cars?
I think the entire car industry is moving towards having nicer controls for these basic functions. Heating, ventilation, seat heating, and a few other things. There it should be nice, and in a premium car, maybe even metal. Or how should it sound? It should feel solid, refined. I think we will see premium cars that are much more refined. I don't think we'll get Tesla. Tesla will keep doing its own thing. Completely stripped down, but I don't think Volvo should go there. I think Volvo needs to go in and feel more fine wood materials or a more expensive feel. I think they've gone a bit wrong there. Okay.
But would you say that BMW has done it better then? By their thoughts on how they've invested in maybe interior technology. They talk a lot about shitek. It's also about things being there, where you can't see them. It shouldn't be so in your face. Is that a better way?
This is, of course, a matter of personal taste. What do you like? Of course, there are people who think Volvo has a nicer interior or that BMW or Mercedes looks better. It's all a matter of taste. But I think you get a more luxurious experience in the BMW with this head-up display that stretches across the entire windshield. With a lot of information that you can turn off if you don't want it. You can mute it so that it's just black. or you can choose to just have the weather and which channel you want to listen to or whatever it is you want. You can keep customizing your interior in a way that makes the car feel more like my car. And yes, I experience it as more premium.
And how do you compare it to the Merc then? You know, there it was still manual air vents and stuff like that. Not everything was inside the screen. Is that it? Or is it just old people who think that's cool?
I think a lot of younger people also think it's cool to be able to grab something and adjust the airflow. Towards me, instead of having to go into a screen and try to adjust the airflow, it went too far. Tesla was too good at it and got too many people on that track. They saved a lot of money by not having any manual controls. I think that's a dead end that we'll eventually back away from. The Mercedes was definitely the most fun car to sit in my opinion, when it comes to the experience. Also pretty nice to talk to and so on. Unfortunately, our Volvo wasn't connected to Google, so we couldn't talk to it.
No, that's a shame.
That's a shame. So we didn't get that experience there. I actually think Volvo is at the forefront even in that area. When we did the test drive, it was really, really good. And this Google Assistant is top-notch. So that comparison didn't work in this test, Jana.
We'll have to come back to that next time.
Yeah, but the Merc also had some cheap plastic here and there, but really nice metal details. So it was a bit of a mixed bag.
Its premium feel was a bit uneven. Volvo was perhaps more consistent.
Yeah. But this one here in the middle at the end doesn't have a glove compartment. Because there's a lot of electronics here, so they have a little thing standing in the middle with an opening mechanism that just feels cheap and, no, it feels budget. I really can't deal with this.
So you think the glove compartment over there is better than a glove compartment in the middle?
I think you should have storage space in the middle and a glove compartment where you can, keep your boring papers or things you don't want to use. Glove compartment stuff. Yeah, and there should be a sense of quality when you open it. It should have a nice button feel to it and so on. I think it didn't deliver the way it should have there.
If we move on and look at the price, because one of the things was, when Volvo launched the EX60, it was like this. It was the cheapest in its segment at the time. It was 20,000 less than what BMW charged and 40,000 less than Mercedes and so on. But when we did the calculations and added everything up, it wasn't really quite the same thing. The way we thought the car should be, or the properly equipped car, there was actually quite a small difference compared to, especially BMW. And that applied then as well. Pure cash. When you look at the cash price, but if you buy it, then it basically becomes a monthly cost. Now I've calculated it. Now let's see if you can keep your head straight. If you bought it then, you had a monthly cost for the BMW then of 5,300, which is only 400 krona more than
5,000.
Well, I haven't included that. But 5,300 compared to 4,900 for the Volvo. But with depreciation, if you include that, then it was 17,500 for the BMW versus 16,800. These are expensive cars to buy.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. Now I'm supposed to spend 17,000 kroner a month just to drive a admittedly nice mid-size electric SUV.
Yeah, you're not actually paying 17,000, but that's what it costs.
That's what it's going to cost you.
20,000 for the Mercedes, so it's the most expensive. But they're also offered on lease.
Before we talk about leasing, when Volvo started talking about the EX60, they said this car would cost about the same as our plug-in hybrid XC60. And then you thought, wow, if you get an electric car that costs as much as a plug-in hybrid, that's a done deal.
Yeah, and they thought, and also a plug-in hybrid, that's interesting. The XC60 starts at 500 something.
99 or whatever it is for some of them. Yeah, so I thought, wow, now things are really happening.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
But it's been far from that. Yeah. Now, it's only well-equipped versions of the XC60 that are being marketed, but still.
Yeah, and on the other hand, the EX60 is currently only sold in fairly well-equipped versions too.
Yeah, that's true.
But if we look at leasing, yeah, then BMW is offered at 9,900 a month. Pretty steep.
A lot of money.
Mercedes GLC, 10,800. Yeah. Also a lot of money. But the Volvo, 12,600 a month, granted, that's a setup called Care by Volvo, where you get service and insurance.
Yes, and you can end your lease after 6 months. You don't have to keep it for 3 years. No. That's Volvo's luxury private leasing offer, you could say.
Yeah, it's more luxurious, but on the other hand, it costs more. You're almost 3,000 more per month compared to the BMW.
Yeah, it's crazy. What's the difference if you buy the car and own it for 3 years, or if you lease it privately and have it for 3 years? What's the total monthly difference?
Well, if you take the BMW, the monthly cost, including depreciation, was 17,572 krona per month. Yes, significantly. If you lease it privately, including tires, fuel, insurance, tax, and so on. That applies whether you buy or lease privately. Then it's 11,828, so about 6,000 kroner less per month.
So it's BMW that is subsidizing you when you lease privately. It's because they offer these subsidies to private customers, since they understand that almost no private customer would spend this kind of money otherwise. So to get them out on the roads for private customers, you have to lease privately. Then BMW has to step in and take a hit somewhere on the depreciation.
And it's about the same figure for the Masa. Around 7,000 krona difference, 20,000 versus 12,600. Volvo then, which is clearly the cheapest to buy, 16,700. Compared to a private lease with a monthly cost of 13.7. So there it's only a 3,000 krona difference.
It's 3,000 kroner again, yes.
So there is not quite the same distinct or marked difference to be found here. Difference between them.
No, so Volvo thinks that since the waiting time is so long, we'll charge a lot, even for private leasing.
You think that's how they're thinking?
Yes, I think that's what they're thinking. We need to make money now. Now we're squeezing out whatever we can get.
Volvo still has quite a big... The burden of proof is kind of on them to succeed with this car. They have to sell, they need the volumes. But at the same time, it's been clear whenever you've talked to Volvo representatives that the order books are full. They
have tried to keep them full, yes. So if they're full, then we can charge a high price. In 2 years, it might be different. Then maybe they'll have a private lease, or maybe in a year, that's much cheaper.
These are the all-wheel drive variants. A rear-wheel drive car will be cheaper. And it is almost certain that there will be more straightforward and fundamentally basic versions becoming available in the near future.
Lower equipment levels, smaller batteries, and rear-wheel drive. Definitely like the people's versions.
Yes. Right now, you really need a substantial budget for these cars. Which of the three would you recommend to a Swedish family that needs a car next year?
I would go for one of the Germans, probably BMW, because it will be even cheaper on private leasing. I can't imagine taking the depreciation hit that comes with these cars and paying 17,000 or 19,000 or 16,000 for the Volvo. It's just not possible. From a personal finance perspective, it's just...
So there really is not the same distinct or marked difference here. Difference between them.
No, the waiting time is so long that we charge a hefty fee even for private listings.
Do you think that's how they're thinking?
Yes, I think that's what they're thinking. We need to make money now. Now we're squeezing out whatever we can get.
Volvo still has quite a large... The burden of proof is on them. They have to succeed with this car. They have to sell. They need volume. But at the same time, everything suggests that when you've talked to Volvo representatives, the order books are full.
They've tried to keep them full, so if they're full, we can charge a high price. In 2 years, it might be different. Then maybe they'll have a private lease, or maybe in a year, that's much cheaper.
These are the all-wheel drive versions, the variants. A rear-wheel drive car will be cheaper. And surely, as time goes on, we'll see simpler ones come out. Like more basic ones.
Lower equipment levels and smaller batteries and rear-wheel drive. Definitely. The people's versions.
As you say, right now, you really need a big budget for these cars. Which of the three would you recommend to a Swedish family that needs a car next year?
I would go with one of the Germans, probably BMW, because it will be even cheaper on private leasing. I can't imagine taking the depreciation hit that comes with these cars and spending 17,000, 19,000 or 16,000 on a Volvo. That's just not possible. From a purely personal finance perspective, private leasing is the only option. Then it has to be one of the Germans. Then it's not Volvo. No way.
It's just too expensive per month.
Yes. So it's out of the running there. As a private purchase or private lease, it's out of the game. And I don't think anyone should buy these cars. Unless you say, I want to keep the car for 8 years and so on. I like owning my car, I drive long distances and so on. Sure, then you could buy one. And in that case, there's something in favor of Volvo, because it has the highest projected residual value according to billpricer.se. That's good for Volvo. What surprised me when I looked at the financial figures is that Volvo has managed to lower the insurance cost much better than the Germans. Half the insurance cost for me, if I insure any of these test cars, it was 400 for the Volvo and 800 for the BMW. When the BMW has been driven for 3 years and I need to have full insurance, then I was up to 1,400 kroner per month for full coverage on the X3.
So that means from year 4 and onwards, the Germans will become much more expensive per month than they were before.
Yeah, an extra 1,000 kroner just for insurance. Almost.
No, that is not it at all.
Not quite, but somewhere around there, closer to that. And that's a lot of money. So buying these cars after they've been company cars for 3 years, then Volvo becomes very attractive again, since it will still have the highest residual value after 6 years and the lowest insurance cost.
But if we were to play with the idea of removing the brand and not thinking about anything specific, which of the cars do you think feels the most modern, the most futuristic?
That's a really good question. They're very similar in every way, and it's more about what kind of experience you're looking for, what you appreciate. I can imagine that many people appreciate the Volvo because it's so quiet and comfortable. As a regular family, you just want it to be quiet, comfortable, and safe. All of these cars are going to be very safe. So I still think the Volvo is doing well in that regard. Definitely. It felt light. And a bit smaller, almost a size smaller. If you stood and looked at the cars side by side, it did feel a bit small, right?
Right. Yes, as you say, it actually felt very light.
And honestly, with the integrated Google Assistant system and the built-in satellite navigation features, which I personally also think might actually work the very best out of these 3 specific cars when driving here in Sweden.
In my personal opinion, I would say that Mercedes' voice assistant and their integrated map navigation system are absolutely outstanding and top tier.
It works.
Works really well. The Google system also works excellently. I would probably still say that Volvo has the edge there, since it's a very low threshold to enter their digital world. Using the system is just like that. People already know how to use Google Maps, and they probably talk to Google through their speakers at home and so on. At least we do. For me, it's very easy. It's so intuitive to use.
I agree with that. I also think it's the easiest screen to navigate. There are a bit fewer things to fiddle with, but it's also the simplest, the smallest step in. But how do we win then?
Why doesn't it win? This was an interesting thing. When you sum it up bit by bit, when you build it up piece by piece in these tests, it was the quietest, but it was the thirstiest. It had a fantastically good packing solution in the back, but it felt a bit characterless in the interior. It was quite weird, and it has a very nice chassis.
Very nice chassis, very good road holding.
But the steering, when you were driving it, it was very wobbly. You had to sit there and crank the wheel like crazy. For some we saw like this, but you look, the Merc, it was like riding a rodeo. It bounced and flew in every possible direction, but it was very lively and fun. That's where the Volvo was maybe a bit boring and safe.
Yeah, you could say that. But for an ordinary family then, How does the steering feel when you're sitting on Essing or the E4 and heading to
Farnborough? No, it doesn't matter at all. And that's why the EX60, I really believe it could become the commercial success that Volvo needs.
I think so too.
Because when we actually sit down to test it, just like we always say, we are certainly not trying to pack an entire professional football team into the back seat of this vehicle. Maybe we don't use the car in quite the same way as many Volvo buyers or this type of buyer, like that's what they're after. It's this everyday practicality thing that...
And actually I thought the back seat was the softest to sit in and I was most comfortable there, and it also had electrically adjustable seat back recline, so I actually thought the EX60's back seat was the best. But the strange thing is, all these things we think are so good about the Volvo, and then even when I actually don't have that much, emotional points. In my test, I had a category that was purely emotional, the wow factor. That's where Volvo completely fell short. But in all the other rounds, it was in the running, but it wasn't that often. It still lost on points. Even if you remove this wow factor round, which was purely emotional, Volvo still didn't win, at least not in my scoring. I don't think it did in yours either.
When I was looking at the scoring results as well, it was clear that the overall range was the issue. That specific area unfortunately took a major hit. It took a hit on price. I mean, in the economy round, it lost points. It wasn't, I mean, the Mercedes is much bigger, carries a lot more, has an incredibly impressive frunk solution and so on. So it wasn't a grand slam in terms of packing and practicality either. And when it comes to the luxury features, with no massage function, it didn't win there either. So it wasn't that it was extremely superior in anything except for sound comfort.
Yes, sound, and I think the suspension.
So that's why it turned out like that. Funny thing is, when you review your points, it ends up here. So this was the final score.
Yes.
Because what I mean is that I think Volvo will be just like the XC60, which managed to trump its German competitors. So I think the EX60 will be able to do the same.
I definitely think Volvo will sell best in Sweden. But do you think Volvo will also manage to sell more EX60s in Europe than Mercedes and BMW sell of their versions?
I'm going to stick my neck out and say yes. I think that in the long run, this will be the one that it delivers on many of the points that people want, and it's safe. It might be a bit uncontroversial. It plays on that. I have a friend who said that's the Volvo. She liked the interior. She thought it was the best.
Yes, that's interesting.
Well, there are other things too. In this price segment, it's a bit of a different feeling that drives people. In my personal opinion, I really feel that Volvo's sleek, minimalist Scandinavian design and cool aesthetic truly has a broad and powerful appeal.
I'm a good parent. I buy a nice, really good, safe car and not testosterone-fueled or flashy. I have to look at myself. I drive a flashy Mercedes that everyone is supposed to look at, the stars shining on the front or something like that. And I'm not a speed demon who has to drive fast in my BMW. Instead, I'm a responsible, good parent. I buy a Volvo? Yes, I think so. If I'm totally with you. If this one had been just as I see it, as stylish as an XC60 and just as premium inside as the XC60, then I would have said yes, Volvo will win without a doubt in Europe as well. But those two things make me a bit hesitant.
So you choose BMW?
Personally, I would pick BMW because with one charging stop, I get an extra 180 kilometers of range. And I also get, in terms of self-driving, I think BMW is superior. It handles acceleration and braking and helps steer smoothly, much better than Volvo at the moment. So those two things would make me choose BMW. And I also think the interior is a bit more interesting. It truly feels like a significantly more unique and special, thrillingly exciting car. And that is a deeply personal and individual experience. Visually, it also stands out more. With its strange grille, you can see what I've bought. But I think Volvo has ended up with some kind of shy, generic electric car design that's uninteresting. What do you say? Which one would you choose? And why?
Before the test, I confidently stated that I had full faith in Volvo. I thought they had done so well. I became a bit more uncertain after driving, and I really liked the Marsan. The Marsan really grew on me during the test, which I didn't expect. But I stick to my choice that I would pick the Volvo. I would choose everyday practicality. I would choose sound comfort and the chassis. And the digital ecosystem that Volvo lives in, those are the things that matter to me. I could live with the fact that it consumes more. I could live with the fact that it has a shorter range. I could live with the fact that it's not as precise to steer.
Yes, I think it's the easiest car to live with, the Volvo, or the coziest car to live with, I think so.
Yeah, maybe the Marsan matches that. But I agree that I think the BMW has more wow factor.
More wow, yes. It's like this, do you want a good car that's just good, or do you want a wow car more or less?
Kind of like that.
That's kind of how it turned out.
Okay, so now comes the part we never really manage while we try to wrap things up. Our question was, why is Volvo the best at everything except winning tests? And in my view, or the way I saw it, or the way still in my test and my evaluation, it turned out that on paper, the numbers are there, I see them, I see that the Volvo wasn't. But there is still something among those things that I value the most that makes me feel like this is why I would still want to have it. And that's why I did it.
Yes, absolutely. And it's always the case that you can compare sound comfort to steering feel, which is more important.
Light comfort.
Exactly. But in my system, those two things get the same weight. You could say, if you rate many characteristics, there might be 3 characteristics that are more important. But if you weight them and give them double importance, then things can happen. So evaluating a new vehicle is really a matter of individual personal taste and subjective preference. You should use the specific test based on your own unique preferences, and carefully examine and review the various scoring systems to find what works best for you. And just use it as a guide. This is important to me. And then approach the test that way. You should use the test intelligently and not just buy the car because it might not suit you at all.
And with that, we say go out and test these cars and see which car you like. This was our take on why we believe Volvo is the best, but still doesn't win.
So that's that.
And with that, we say thank you and goodbye. Have a
great day. If you have any questions for us or suggestions on what we should record next, write them down. And feel free to subscribe to the channel. Thank you.
And
goodbye.